Now, I've mentioned George Soros a number of times, and he's connected to a number of these organisations. Do you know much about Soros, Andrew?
I don't know an awful lot. I know that he has been connected to, he's even been connected to people like Stephen Greer and the Disclosure Project in terms of funding. So, you know, he's one of these figures that pops up a bit like Kissinger, you know, that he seems to have his finger in many pies, but mainly from a financial rather than a political angle, is my understanding.
Let me read this quote, page 93. Soros' fingerprints are all over the WikiLeaks project. For example, not only has Freedom House worked closely with Soros Open Society Institutes in promoting such projects as the Washington-financed 2005 Tulip Revolution in Kyrgyzstan that brought the Washington-friendly dictator and drug boss Kurmanbek Bakayev to power, but WikiLeaks board member Ben Lorry, a former security boss of Google, is a director of Open Rights Group funded by Soros' front group, the Open Society Foundation. In a nutshell, WikiLeaks is packed with people who either work for Soros or are Soros collaborators. We know that Open Society Foundation was considered as one of the premier organisations to look for funds. So Soros funds sort of left-wing psyops, basically, that have a geopolitical intention. I advise people do their own research on George Soros and what his real motives may well be, but he's connected to Rothschilds and obviously the City of London and the whole
banking network banking families. Yeah.
Let's just cover now the actual mechanism of disclosure.
Yes.
Because WikiLeaks will accept documents just sent through the post. They've had various PO boxes. So if you've got a paper document, you make sure your fingerprints aren't on it, you send it to a PO box, right? But PO boxes can be infiltrated, and WikiLeaks, if they had a PO box, there would be nothing to stop intelligence agencies actually opening their mail, right? So that's not 100% secure. Now they have developed, they claim, a means by which people can go on their website and upload documents to them without the user then being identified with the certain protocols that they've developed. Now that may well be true. And another point to make is that you don't actually need a portal like this, a secure portal to leak documents. You don't need a PO box. All you need to do is you buy, let's say, a brand new laptop with cash, or you obtain a computer that's not linked to you. You go onto a wireless network, and then you open an email account under a different name to your own, and then you send the documents to a journalist or to me or to anyone in a like internet cafe.
That's right.
And then you chuck the laptop in the bin.
Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't even need a laptop. You can do it with a phone now. You can get like a 20 quid phone that's got wireless internet on it, and then just chuck the phone in the bin. You know.
So you can send terabytes of information that way.
Yes. Yeah.
Not that most leaks would consist of terabytes. Documents are very small in their nature in terms of, you're talking a few K. So you don't actually need this facility to leak something and still remain anonymous.
That's it. You know, we could also make a case about the blog that we discussed on the Mars rover program. That was essentially a leak, if that story was true, which appeared to be, and it was just on a blog. You know, the guy just anonymized it. Leaked.
Yeah. We don't know who he is.
No?
Yeah. You were just going to mention that really important VIP went to see Julian Assange. Who was that?
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about the situation in the Ecuadorian embassy, which seemed to be pretty artificial. And I learned when I was, doing a bit of research for this program that Lady Gaga spent 5 hours with him. This was fairly recently, I think in the last couple of years. And so you'll find that story. And you also mentioned that...
Yeah, Pamela Anderson, I heard, was the other one.
Yeah, so.
I wonder what he did with her.
Well, indeed, yeah.
All right. So if let's just look at, because the leaks have come from very diverse areas. So you've got defense, banking, personal emails, foreign intelligence, congressional reports, Bilderberg meetings, Guantanamo Bay procedures, blah, 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 blah. So if it's been done via hacking, then it's someone's got very good knowledge of all these different systems, but we're led to believe it's whistleblowers. I find it hard to believe that someone like Bradley Manning would have access to so much information. I mean, maybe they do, I don't know.
You know, I mean, we can imagine that, the biggest intelligence gathering agencies are the CIA and the NSA. So we can imagine that WikiLeaks could be a portal for them to make stuff public in a way which they saw fit, you know, to influence public perception of the election campaign, or a certain, if they wanted to get a bank shut down for whatever reason, then if NSA had gathered information on that bank or their shareholders, they could front that through WikiLeaks and get that bank shut down.
Yeah, and they may have shut the country down of Iceland in that way.
Yeah, indeed.
Because there was the Icelandic banking collapse, and what happened there was WikiLeaks released a document after the collapse which kind of revealed how it happened, who was corrupt, who was funneling money here and there, and that then caused an outrage. But they then said, okay, well, WikiLeaks is now going to help us reform our information laws and our banking system. So WikiLeaks was actually involved in the governmental process in Iceland, allegedly, to help them reform their laws. Which, does that sound right to you?
Absolutely.
Why? Has he got a degree in law or finance? Not that I'm aware of. So it's just so unbelievable.
And on that sort of thing as well, I had a thought when he was in the Pilger interview again. He says, Assange actually says, WikiLeaks has been publishing for 10 years, 10 million documents, several thousand publications, several thousand different sources, and we've never got it wrong, he says. We've never got it wrong. So he's putting forward that they're just 100% reliable, but they're only as reliable as how truthful the documents that they release are. Mm-hmm. So if somebody leaks a fake document, or a document which has lies in it, they're leaking lies just like everyone else is. So for him to make a statement like that, it's ridiculous. Say, oh, we're never wrong. Well, you may have successfully leaked the documents, but are those documents accurate?
Mm-hmm. Here's a thing here that they've released in March 2008. WikiLeaks published what they referred to as the collected secret Bibles of Scientology. Mm-hmm. I mean, any comment on that?
Well, again, Scientology has come under fire, so if they want to manipulate people in Scientology or the public perception of it, again, WikiLeaks is a way of doing that.
Mm-hmm. And here's another comment, I've just highlighted this here. Sarah Palin's Yahoo email account contents in September 2008, some of Sarah Palin's emails. But apparently it was hacked into by members of Anonymous. And then at some point it was revealed publicly that the person who had hacked was David Kernel, a 22-year-old economics student at the University of Tennessee. So WikiLeaks seemed to have worked in conjunction with certain people from this anonymous movement, and there's a huge question mark over that movement. Indeed, as well, is there not?
Yeah, very much, yeah.
And whether it's another front stroke psyop in order to handle the alternative dissent and alternative media and what have you.
Yes.
ClimateGate emails. Now, this is an interesting comment, because the ClimateGate emails, these were emails from the University of East Anglia, which showed that the scientists were fraudulently trying to big up the claims of climate increases.
Global warming, yeah.
But WikiLeaks didn't leak those ClimateGate emails. It says WikiLeaks, although the information was not originally leaked by them, they've hosted some of those emails. So they've already been leaked out by someone else. So they'll put them on their server. Right, so they're not... So they kind of claiming credit for blowing the whistle on this ClimateGate thing, but not really. Bilderberg meeting reports from 1955, 56, 57, 58, 60, 62, 63 and 1980. So nothing really recent.
So they're probably trying to use that to enhance their credibility or enhance their role. And again, going back to the hackers that might be working for them, if these hackers really are ethical and they really are doing damage, and they go to WikiLeaks, then again they can be identified and dealt with accordingly. Mm-hmm. You know, either put in prison or made, an offer which will get them to work for the very forces that they're trying to work against.
Here's another one which will interest you, Andrew. 9/11 pager messages. On the 25th of November 2009, WikiLeaks released 570,000 intercepts of pager messages sent on the day of the September the 11th attacks, right? So this is people obviously in panic. They've seen this thing happen. Now, all those text messages are going to do is reassert the official story, are they not? Because
Generally
really
speaking,
nobody
yeah.
on that day was questioning the official version.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there is, we're going off on a side issue here, but there is a slightly interesting thing that came out of those text messages, which was the reports of Hurricane Erin, which were automatic from a weather service text. Those are quite interesting, but outside of that, yes, they're pretty much just not that much of a useful set of information for events on 9/11.
So it says here that when WikiLeaks released the Baghdad airstrike video in 5th of April 2010, in the week following the release, WikiLeaks was the search term with the most significant growth worldwide in the last 7 days as measured by Google Insights. We've also got, briefly touch on the Afghan war logs. I think this was the first time that I woke up and attached any kind of importance to WikiLeaks, because I saw Assange giving his lecture when he was talking about these war logs, and I just thought, wow, this is 92,000 documents, and each one of the documents is a report on collateral damage from the ground. So it says, on this date and this time, we bombed this village. There was 7 villagers killed. We blew up 4 buildings. It took this long. This is how much ammunition was used. Right, and then okay, next one, and it's just like that. Thousands of documents, thousands of the Afghan war, and then they released the Iraq ones as well. And it was then I thought, this is really big what they're releasing, which there's nothing parallels it in history in terms of the detail of a conflict. Not that many people have actually looked at them, but again, is this more like the emperor sticking the criminals' heads on the top of a pole and saying, look what we can do? Yeah. According to a report on the Daily Beast website, the Obama administration has asked Britain, Germany and Australia, among others, to consider bringing criminal charges against Assange for the Afghan war leaks and to help limit Assange's travel across international borders. In the United States, a joint investigation by the Army and the Federal Bureau of Investigation may try to prosecute. May try to prosecute. It's always this this ongoing investigation and impending prosecution.
Yeah, yeah.
He's been going 10 years, over 10 years. So perhaps we can just finish by assuming that we're correct. What's really the intention behind it, the real intention, and where they're trying to take it? You got any thoughts on that?
Well, again, going back to what I was saying earlier, that it is like a new way of getting things into the public domain, where there is a level of, there's like a sort of a wall between the public and the information in terms of where does it come from, who's leaked it.
Mm-hmm. There's cherry picking of the information.
I think so, yeah. And it's just that it's like, it's a bit hard to describe, but WikiLeaks is meant to be this kind of rebellious portal where people are doing things that they shouldn't be doing. So this whole idea of documents being leaked, is quote unquote naughty, whereas stuff being in the newspaper isn't quite the same. In other words, it's like the way that this information is being accessed is, you ask questions about whether it's ethical or not, and that isn't quite the same with the mainstream. The way that information comes through WikiLeaks is it's tainted. It's tainted in some way. I find it difficult to describe, but that's what again, going back to a Guardian article, that it's becoming the way that journalism will work.
Because obviously they have to make it look like what it's claimed to be. They can't be they have to release information which is real and true. It's real people's emails, and people have to believe that they're this renegade organisation which is going against the establishment. So they have to be careful not to be too, let's say, in one direction in what they're doing if they want to create this one world government, because they released some stuff which was trying to demonize Putin at one point, where they were saying, oh, he's built this with all of this corrupt money that he's stolen. He's building a new palace for himself or whatever. Isn't it terrible? But I think they've ended up having to step back on demonizing Putin. I don't think it worked to perhaps how they wanted it to.
Right.
So I think that's one of the main agendas, to all of the regimes that they really want to take control of, or regime change. It's helping with those. It's helping get the PSI information into the person's mind about those regimes first, before they, you know what I mean? Rather than just using the mainstream media for that.
Right. The other thing which I just remembered was with the Amy Goodman interview, the one where he's in the embassy and she's in the studio. Right at the end of that interview, he starts to talk about the deep state, and he also mentions the military-industrial complex.
Mm-hmm.
And that, to me, was starting to get a bit more interesting. But
Mm-hmm.
then that's the end of the interview, and he doesn't really get a chance to talk about that.
Mm-hmm.
So that, again, I would have been interested to know what he was going to say about that,
Mm-hmm.
and how he was going to spin it based on, what we've been discussing in this programme.
Mm-hmm. There was one other quote that I wanted to read from Daniel Esterlin's book, and it's concerned with mind control. Yeah. So there's a CIA mind control specialist called Dr. Ewan Cameron, and we've spoken about him with Neil Sanders. And he is alleged to have quoted this, that he believed that every person is the ultimate arbiter of justice in their own conscience, right? And in one of Assange's interviews, he's alleged to have said, "We favour and uphold ethical behaviour in all circumstances. We do not believe in unquestioning obedience to authority in all circumstances. Every person is the ultimate arbiter of justice in their own conscience." So he quoted Ewan Cameron, the CIA mind control doctor, exactly in those words. That might not mean anything, but just...
It is unusual, isn't it? Yeah.
Is he... Has he read Ewan Cameron's work, or if so, why? So I think we've covered enough for one session, Andrew, and we may well come back to this. I'm sure there'll be lots of feedback on this show. And remember, believe none of what you hear, including from WikiLeaks, and only half of what you see. I'm Richard D. Hall. Good night.